I got a comment today from somebody named Drax who said that I should do a versus episode of the Woodford Reserve Straight Rye and the Elijah Craig Straight Rye. And Drax, I agree.
Now let's put more of this liquid into our body.
So tonight I have two Kentucky Straight Rye whiskeys, the Elijah Craig from Heaven Hill Distilleries and the Woodford Reserve from Woodford Reserve. The Elijah Craig was first released in January of 2020. It's 94 proof, 47% ABV. It's no age statement, although believed to have some older rye in it. Its mash bill is 51% rye, 35% corn, 14% malted barley, and it's the same mash bill as Rittenhouse or Pikesville. Its MSRP is $35. The Woodford Reserve Rye was first released in 2015 at 90.4 proof, 45.2% ABV. It's at least 4 years old. Its mash bill is 53% rye, 33% corn, 14% malted barley, and its MSRP is about $38. Both have no age statements, similar mash bills, and only 2% ABV difference between the two of them. So this is truly a good match. First, we're going to have the Elijah Craig Straight Rye. Let's have the nose. Oranges are a big part here. There's some black pepper, vanilla for sure, and realistically it smells more like a high rye bourbon than it does a high corn rye. It's just very butterscotch, caramel, vanilla. The oranges, I mean, you would get that in a bourbon a lot, so this is definitely right down the middle. And it makes sense at that 51%. Let's have a taste. Cheers. I'll be honest, there's a little bit of a taste here that's reminding me of the price point and the fact that this is kind of very popular and mass-produced. But that doesn't make it bad. It just means it's not as well refined. It's also a no-age statement, so I mean, we can make some assumptions, especially the fact that it is a straight rye whiskey. But on the flavor here, butterscotch is a thing, but I'm actually getting almost like a burnt popcorn, but not... burnt's the wrong word. It's almost like just about to burn. It's like slightly cooked too long popcorn. I really like that note. What that becomes is like a toasted butter, but too much. And then mix that with some caramel, that's a little too much. And that makes sense because you're gonna have a little bit of char coming from the barrel as well. So, cinnamon, vanilla. Pretty much it tastes like a bourbon that has some rye experience, but that's okay. Again, right down the middle. Let's go ahead and put this one against the Woodford. Onto the Woodford Reserve Rye. Very, very different nose, as in like completely worlds apart. This one tastes a bit more like a marshmallow, like a toasted marshmallow. And there's definitely some pepper in there. Something floral too, and I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not... like with a rye you might expect me to say grassy or something along those. This is more like a flower. Not lilac. I don't think I'm going to be able to put my name, my finger on it. If I think of it in the editing, I'll put it on the screen, but I'm not really sure. You know what this smells like though is like black tea. Almost like, I wouldn't even say iced tea. I would just say black tea that's cold, which I don't know. This stuff is wild. I should be able to get a little bit more fruit off this, but I'm not smelling it tonight. I was looking back through my notes. This is one of the first videos, actually. This was the first whiskey I ever opened up live on an episode. Kind of did a first taste as my review, so which is kind of a wild thing. I've since rebought the bottle, but that black tea flavor on the nose is very much sticking out to me. That's like all I'm smelling along with that marshmallow. So kind of cool. Cheers, everybody. I'm realizing, I think, what I was smelling, and it's clove, because it's very much what I'm tasting here. Whereas a rye will typically go either herbal or spicy, this is kind of not doing either one. I truly don't know why I'm tasting black tea so strongly tonight. I don't have that in any of my notes from previous times of having this. But it's almost all I can taste, and I'm attributing it to a combination of the clove and like a minty flavor, maybe kind of going together. If you can picture what those two would taste like together, I think you'll find that it's not too far apart from that black tea that I've been describing. Speaking of tea, I'm also tasting a little bit of honey in here. I would peg this for a rye if I were to blind taste it, but it would be a little bit of a struggle. I would honestly be like, what the heck is this finished in? It tastes like it's finished in something weird. Anyway, all right, let's try them both. I'm going to do that myself, and then I'm going to come back with a winner. Before I announce the winner, I want to thank my patrons for their incredible generosity, without which these videos wouldn't be able to happen. So if you're at all interested in supporting the channel, go check out my Patreon. You can find a link in the description below. Otherwise, just keep watching the videos. It's one of the better ways to support if you can't do it through Patreon. So let's talk these whiskeys. Okay, I have picked a winner. However, I will say that this is a very hard decision because they're very different. You wouldn't think so, considering how similar they are in the metrics, right? But they're very different, and it proves that whole, this is an art form to a degree. I mean, it's science, but there's an art form to this. Okay. The Elijah Craig, which hilariously I poured into the Woodford Reserve Glencairn, I didn't even notice that. The Elijah Craig over here, my opinion of the flavor is that this is easier for anybody to get into. It is more what you are expecting when you drink it, but ultimately I find it a little bit lackluster, like a little boring, and I don't think it's as well refined as I would really want it to be. It needs a little bit more time in the barrel, is kind of what I'm getting at, and that detracts from it for me. Now the Woodford, on the other hand, there's detractors here too. The Woodford is not a rye. It is, but when I taste this, I don't taste a rye. I taste something that's just a little bit weird. Like, it doesn't taste at all like any other whiskeys that I have on my shelf. I wouldn't drink this and be like, that's a bourbon, that's a rye, that's an American single malt. It's like, what am I drinking? As I mentioned, what did they finish this in? It's very unlike what I was expecting, but that's not a bad thing, because in this case, I do think that that is gonna make it edge out a little bit, in that this is interesting, whereas this is good. This is pretty good, but it's more interesting. And that apparently is what I'm in the mood for tonight, is something more interesting. So the Woodford Reserve is going to be my choice between these two, but I will say that this could vary depending on the night that I decided to film this. So there you go. I'd say buy them both, or go buy a Pikesville. All right, as always, I like to mix these two together and see if the combination is better than the sum of its parts. So let's try it out. Maintains the nose from the Elijah Craig, which is interesting because I feel like the nose on the Woodford was a little bit stronger. But interesting. Yeah, it basically just smells like the Elijah Craig. All right, cheers everybody. Yeah. Ooh, that's interesting. Very, very layered. Initial reaction is that the kind of that finish that I didn't love from this is gone. It's, replaced by that, which is great. Then it's a little bit higher alcohol than I was expecting. It's like a wave of, that tastes pretty good. Oh, that's like a little bit of an alcohol burn. And then the finish is just a general kind of half boring rye. But there were a few different layers, as I mentioned. It was like flavor, 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 flavor. And those flavors were very much an easily pick out part of both of these. It was like layers, layers, right? So anyway, thank you everybody. Drax, thank you very much for the suggestion. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and cheers. I will have a video out on Friday. I'm very excited for it. It's the Lefroy Carchis 2024, as long as it gets here in the mail by then. So it should be coming tomorrow, or today if you're watching this, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. Cheers everybody.